Hello. Every time I do that, it like freezes me. Hi, everybody. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Maybe some of you were joining us from John's other webcast this morning. How'd that go? You feeling good? Are you awake?
I felt it went good.
Yeah, that's good.
Not that my opinion matters in these things.
Well, you think that you just absolutely nailed it? I'm pretty sure you did. So,
I've had better, not many.
kind of a big deal. I teach
Oh,
in Europe and in the US in the same day, but
yeah. No. Oh my God.
good
Oh,
morning, everybody. Welcome in.
here we go. What's this? Need that. Just have too much stuff open.
I know, I do that too. I've got Windows on Windows, and then I've got like several instances of browsers. I'm a tab lover. I'm going to be honest. I think that,
Gotta be
that
honest, Erica is like the ultimate tab queen. On her phone, I'm not kidding. She has so many tabs open that whenever it lists the number of tabs that you have, I'm not joking, it's an infinity symbol.
oh
Oh
my
man.
God. No wonder when I'm like, hey, Erica, can you look at this? And she's just like, oh, I can't find it.
Oh,
So
my
that's all
system's
the
running
time.
slow. It's like, oh my
That's
God.
hilarious. Oh my gosh.
And the hard part is, like I sit and I go through it. I'm like, well, can we close it? She's like, no, that's payroll. Can I close this? No.
No, no,
Undo.
it's like
It's like,
my
oh.
organization is the same way. Like I'll be going through something. I'll be like, oh, that's where that is. Makes
Mhm.
zero sense that it's here. Do I move it to where it probably should go? Absolutely not.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
You can't have that.
No, I'm like, oh yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna go run and grab a quick glass of water. I'll
Okay.
be
Good morning, everybody. Day 3, getting started in security with BHIS and MITRE attack. So hopefully people are hydrated and caffeinated and ready for a big day. Um, Welcome to all of our streaming people on the different places on all the different streaming platforms. I've seen a couple of people from Restream. So I don't know if I have said this, but I say this quite hi, a here. Um, I say this quite a bit and sometimes forget. If you need a certificate of completion, please make sure that you register on our website. We do not ever sell our mailing list. So if that's your hesitation to register with us, please don't use that as a reason to be scared. We don't even give our mailing list to our vendors,
no.
our sponsors. Like we
Much to
don't give
their
it.
much to their chagrin.
Yes.
Like,
So,
well, we're willing to pay $10,000 for your mail.
right.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
or we burn it to the ground.
Right.
CJ
Sorry.
Cops, our
Have
COO,
you
has
heard
this.
about us before? We do pay what you can. Like,
I know CJ's quote that I love is like, it's like we have this golden chicken or this chicken that lays golden eggs and
mhm.
all the time with knives. They're like, let's cut that damn chicken open and let's get those eggs. It's like
Yeah.
that's not how a chicken like that works as
No,
well.
we're
They
not
didn't
going to
take a Sands training, got called.
cook.
Oh, is Sands selling? I don't remember them selling their list of vendors. Did they start doing that?
Oh,
Yeah.
probably.
Oh,
Well, yeah, they do because of the webcasts. This is probably
hmm.
secret sauce.
I don't know. I
I'm
didn't
gonna,
think.
yeah.
I
Well,
know
yeah,
that at
it's
MSP
taken.
summits, whenever I go to MSP conferences, they're totally like, you pay this much money and you get access to everyone's email for the whole
Yeah.
conference. It's like that's dirty.
Yeah.
So
We don't like that. That makes us feel the ick. And
Yeah.
so we don't do
And,
that.
and we do collect information and we do like webcasts and more free training. It's
Yeah.
like sign up for more free stuff.
Yeah. That's the only reason we use it. So, and you can always opt out. Like if you are getting too many emails from us, you can just tell us and it won't hurt our feelings. We'll just stop sending
A
them.
little.
That's fine.
Might hurt a little.
It, maybe a little bit, but
A little bit. We'll miss you. We hate to see you
yes,
go. Be the
we
sad kitty.
we love you. We
I
won't
can't do
send you
sad kitty.
our,
Why
our
is
love
everything I do
emails.
looks insane? Happy.
Yeah.
Sad. Like every single one of the faces I make, it makes me look like I'm a serial killer. It's just Daryl's laughing a little too hard at that one. Oh God. All right. So
All
we ready
right, we're
to
gonna
roll?
be, you ready? You ready
Let's
to
do
get
it.
this thing started?
Let's get it started in here. All
All
right.
right.
Welcome to day 3, everybody. So I'm going on my 5th hour of training so far. This morning it was a lot colder. It's supposed to get to like 95 again here in Bozeman. So it's already warming up, and you're probably wondering, why am I in a garage? I'm in a garage because I started teaching at 4 o'clock this morning, and I didn't want to wake anybody else up. So I'm here in the garage. So there's a little bit of a garage echo, but the best hacking happens in the basement and in garages. But we're going to start out this morning, and we're going to be talking about advanced endpoint protection, which I think is an excellent topic. What does it stop? Like everything. Like seriously, if you're going to look at what is the one thing that you can have in your environment that's going to improve your security better than anything else, it's having a properly tuned and implemented endpoint security protection suite. And I know I'm kind of tap dancing around like the phrase that I use because it's not antivirus. You have people all the time, well, it's not AV, it's EDR. And then you have EDR, and then you have Palo Alto. They're like, it's XDR. And it's like, well, Paolo, you missed that Metasploit payload that had no encoding. XDR. It's time to sit down, Paolo. It's time to sit down and take a beat and reflect on life choices. But you have all these different products that are constantly trying to come up with different names, because if you can rename something to next generation or XDR, or you know what you could do? Have you guys seen the Palo Alto commercials with Keanu Reeves? I'm not joking. Go look at this. These are insane commercials. They're actually really flipping cool. But they hired Keanu Reeves to do commercials for them at RSA. So they have him jumping out of like spaceships and attacking viruses and hackers with kung fu. And he's their security guy. So you need to check that out. But they should have spent that money on was catching viruses, because they didn't catch that one. And I know the people from Palo Alto, they're going to call me up. They're going to be like, well, actually, we just don't do signature-based detection, and we really need to look at the behavioral aspects of this malware. I'm like, so let me get this straight. You need it to execute before you can decide if it's bad. Now, I can understand that for some really highly customized stuff, but this was kicked out by Metasploit with no encoding. Come on, you can do better. And by doing better, catch all of these things. Behold, this is my field. And notice it is filled with tons of different techniques that can be detected with a properly implemented endpoint protection suite. And this goes to the idea of overlapping fields of view. If you're looking at trying to defend your network, you need to have that AV EDR. You need to have the network security monitoring. You need to have UEBA, user entity behavioral analytics, and you need to have a solid SIM architecture to be able to detect and react to attacks appropriately. However, in addition to all of this, you desperately need to have the ability to test and evaluate and make sure that these different things are working properly together. So in a little bit, we're going to have a lab. We're going to be running Atomic Red Team, and we're going to be running Blue Spawn, which is just a simple stand-in for an EDR. I need to probably hunt down the interns in the project and have them update it. But the point is, you need to test. You need to test and evaluate, because there's so many of these different products that say that they do lots of things, but they're liars, and they're lying liars, or more accurately, the way that they're configured in environments actually shuts down and reduces the efficacy of these different products. An example would be AV EDR. You could have the best AV EDR on the planet. You could just have this amazing one. But all it takes is one administrator who's globally allowing PowerShell scripts to just blow a hole right through your entire security posture. These things happen all of the time in computer security, and we need to be careful about that. All right. So when you're looking at these products, get ready to pay because they are expensive. I need to update the slide because Endgame is now owned by Elastic. BlackBerry no longer owns Cylance. Cylance got spun off to White Wolf Security. By the way, how much did BlackBerry pay for Cylance? Anyone know? We can Google this. Let's go. Let's Google this. This sounds like a good idea. Let's go. How much did All right. So Cylance was acquired by BlackBerry for $1.4 billion. In the industry, that's what we call expensive. And I would think, Amish Brian, you would agree, $1.4 billion, it's a lot of cheddar. It's a lot of cheddar. Okay. By the way, do you guys know what the difference is between a million and a billion? This is a lot of people. They don't understand numbers really well. If you look at a million and you look at a billion and you're going to roughly guess what the difference is between 1 million and 1 billion, the difference is roughly 1 billion. Because remember, a billion is 1,000 million. Keep that in mind here just for a second. So now let's see how much White Wolf paid for Cylance when they acquired it from BlackBerry. Turns out they bought it for 160 million. That's 90% off. That's a lot of, it's still a lot of money, but yeah, ouch. That's kind of a bad deal there, right? So we have CrowdStrike, we have SentinelOne, we have all of these different products, and they tend to be expensive. They tend to be pricey, and they should be, right? There's a lot of things that these particular products are actually doing. Now, the tool that we're going to use as a stand-in is not a commercial product at any stretch of the imagination. You shouldn't be running Blue Spawn in an enterprise environment at all. It was created by a bunch of university students for a Capture the Flag event on the East Coast. Okay, so we're going to be talking about it and we're going to be using it in a lab in a little bit as a stand-in to kind of show you how you can test and evaluate your EDR using Atomic Red Team as well. And this is the coverage. I mean, that's not super great in MITRE. Your commercial products will have a lot more coverage than what you actually see here. So whenever we're looking at threats and we're looking at trying to evaluate what things are doing, we've got to look at it from the perspective of threat emulation. How do we properly test and validate what it is our EDR is actually doing? So if we go back to MITRE, we go to the MITRE attack framework, go to the enterprise matrix. A lot of the kind of the initial AV offerings were trying to stop just this initial access. Okay. So they were doing hash verification. They were trying to look at the executables. They were trying to see what they were doing. And now when you're looking at modern EDRs, they're now going across execution, persistence, privilege escalation, defensive evasion. They're hitting all of these categories. And most of the solid EDR products that you're looking at can detect a lot of these different things. But as I told you, it is very common for a configuration to exist within an organization that'll absolutely blow a hole straight through any of the security posture that you have in your organization. And when we're looking at isn't just that pre-execution, and this is where I'm going to throw Palo Alto a bone. A lot of the products are really crappy still at detecting the initial execution of the malware. Instead, what they focus on is what happens next. How is that particular executable moving laterally? How is it trying to escalate privileges? It's looking at how that's functioning post-exploitation. Because it turns out detecting initial code execution is really flipping hard. Your computer is a general purpose computer system. It wants to run software, and it's very, very difficult to always detect malware in all of its permutations. So what a lot of these products are doing is kind of risk-based alerting, where they're looking at the different functions that a program does, and as it does more and more stuff like enumerating the network or privilege escalation, it gets a threat modifier and its score goes up. And it learns that this behavior is bad in an environment as well. So how do we test this? And this is kind of what the crux of this section is going to be about. How do we test and evaluate whether or not our EDR is working appropriately? Turns out we have some tools. One of those tools is MITRE's own Caldera. MITRE, of course, the people behind the ATT&CK framework and the Defend framework, have released a tool called Caldera that allows you to put agents, Caldera agents, on multiple different computer systems so they can test and evaluate which of the techniques are actually detected in your organization. Now, quick note on the Caldera agents. They directly share all of their AV signatures with all of the AV vendors, so the Caldera agents cannot be used as malicious malware. And this brings me to a point that exists to regardless of whatever framework you're using to test and evaluate. You should always test and evaluate in a system that's running an alerting non-blocking mode. And what this means is it's going to alert on what the AV or EDR would have done, but it's not actively going to stop it from executing. And the reason why is some of these things are chained together. Like you can have a PowerShell script that invokes a whole bunch of command prompt or batch scripts or additional programs. And if you're just stopping that PowerShell execution, you're not going to properly evaluate the entire life cycle of malware executing in your environment. So as with Caldera, as with Prelude, as with Scythe, as with all of the different tools that we're going to use, like Atomic Red Team, you want to test and evaluate these tools in alerting non-blocking mode, which brings us to Atomic Red Team. Atomic Red Team is amazing. We have a great class, purple teaming attack emulation, reporting, and detection identification with Carrie Roberts. Carrie is a former employee at Black Hills Information Security. She's a trader and she went to work at a Fortune 1 company. I'm kidding. I love Carrie and her husband. They're fantastic people and their class is top notch. So be sure to check it out there as well. So with this with this tool, you can invoke individual techniques, which is what we're going to be doing a little bit later in the lab. We're going to fire off specific techniques and we're going to see how our stand-in EDR of BlueSpawn is able to detect those particular techniques. The methodology that we use would be the same methodology one would use if they were using a real EDR and not BlueSpawn. The other thing that we really like about Atomic Red Team is it has the ability to give you a full rundown of what it is actually doing on the system. And this is incredibly helpful, right? So if we're looking at this, what is it going to do? It's like upon execution, calc.exe will be launched, right? And it says this is the command it's executing, regserve32 /s/u/i, and then it's using script object.dll to pull down an ActiveX XML file to fire it off. It's actually a .SCT file, which has the ActiveX inside of the .SCT file. So this helps you write your signatures. It helps you say, okay, I need to write a signature for regserve32 being invoked with the following options, SUI and script object DLL, without trying to get into the entire path. A little bit later, I'm going to talk about, one of the problems I see in a lot of evaluation environments is, or not evaluation, whenever people are writing signatures, is they write the signature too specific. So they'll write the signature for like this, right here. Let me see if I get a pen. I'll just do a shape. There we go. They'll write a signature for this. Well, that would be good. So that's better, right? Yay. And then this right here would be bad. Okay. Bad. Oh my God. That did not work out well. All right, so it would be bad. And the reason why it would be bad is because we're writing a very specific string which would have the path for the atomic red team. And that just wouldn't work very well for anybody. So when we're looking at this one, it's giving us the actual core parameters that are required for this particular attack to work properly. Okay, kill annotation, move on. There we go. So one of the questions I like to keep asking is kind of a little bit of just kind of, I don't know, quick question. Do you guys feel comfortable running tools like Atomic Red Team? The reason why I ask about that is whenever I first was working on this and kind of setting up this class, honestly, the vast majority of people out there were really, really super concerned about running any of these tools. They were worried that, somehow these tools would come alive and automatically go out and try to kill Sarah Connor. And it's kind of fun. Well, it's not fun. It's interesting. When we're talking to customers and we're talking about creating malware and executing malware in their environment, how many of the customers are so concerned that somehow the malware is going to run rampant and start attacking all parts of their environment. And honestly, if you're looking at something like Atomic Red Team is like used by thousands of organizations, right? If it had some kind of like kill Sarah Connor vibes going on it, it would probably have been detected by now. So I really try to get one of the goals of this class is to get people comfortable with running some of these tools because we desperately need to get more comfortable with them as well. I still have a little dot. There's a little red spot on my screen today. Other tools that we can do adversarial emulation on? Bloodhound. A lot of people don't look at Bloodhound as a tool that is an adversary emulation tool. And the reason why they don't is they're constantly looking for things like, like Atomic Red Team or Prelude or something like that. And what happens with Bloodhound is it has the ability to do a number of different enumeration techniques to try to find a pathway to get to a domain administrator. And it's not just doing one or two things, it does a lot of things. Like systems with RDP enabled, what do we have for users in the local administrators group? The list goes on and on and on and on. Kerberoastable service accounts, things of that nature. So it's very, very, very cool for an adversarial emulation perspective because it can actually test and evaluate that path in a variety of different ways. Now, when you're running threat emulation, especially whenever you're trying to create signatures around the threat emulation, it goes back to that warning I had a number of slides ago. So if I go back here, if we write that signature, let me annotate again because, hey, I just discovered annotation, y'all. If I write a signature for this specific thing, right? If I write a signature for this, that specific signature is going to successfully detect any of the adversarial emulation that I do because it has the full path. It's probably going to be a really good signature for detecting the emulation. It's going to do an absolute crap job of detecting actual attackers. And the reason it's going to do a crap job of detecting actual attackers is because it has that very specific registry key, or not registry, directory path in it as well. So we have to be careful in writing our signatures in too specific of a manner. And yes, this gets into something about vendors. Vendors are really good at detecting pen testing tools. And the reason why they're really good at detecting pen testing tools is because that's what they're being tested and evaluated on. There's a great quote that says, show me how someone is tested and evaluated, and I will explain their behavior, right? And a tremendous number of the different AV tools that are out there and EDR tools, network security monitoring tools, are really hyper-focused at detecting malware and things that are created by penetration testers or adversarial emulation frameworks. So you're constantly testing to the specific test, and all you need to do is just slightly modify what it is you're doing. And many times you can bypass that security assessment product that is in your environment. So we have to break out of that trap and we have to get creative. It's one of the reasons why full automated AI pen testing I don't think is ever going to be a thing. I think we can come up with the tools that take care of 80% of the work, the kind of mundane, repeatable work. But then we're getting into that last 20%. And that last 20% is the stuff that requires human ingenuity to actually look at the environment, learn what the environment is doing, and dig in places that no one has ever dug before. That's what we need to be focusing on. So there are commercial tools out there. There's XM Cyber, Attack IQ, there's Scythe. God, there was another one, Horizon AI. People at Horizon AI are super duper sweet. The only problem I have with Horizon AI, and I don't know if they fixed this, but, and it could be the person at the booth was wrong, but Horizon AI has a ton of open source projects that are underneath the hood. And that's cool, right? Like use open source projects. Turns out a lot of their open source projects that they're using under the hood are created by BHIS. I'm not bitter. It's just weird, right? Like I had them guy called, look at all these tools that we use that are your tools. And I'm like, that's great. How much do you charge for this? Like, I'm not making any money off of it. And I wouldn't. It would be my testers, but they're not getting checks. But this is one of the problems that you see with a number of these vendors when, oh yeah, no, not just our tools. They're using a whole bunch of open source tools. And it's not just them. Like almost all of these vendors are using a tremendous number of open source tools under the hood to do their testing and evaluation. Once again, I don't have a problem with that, but they need to give some better recognition and they probably should be reimbursing the open source tool development community out there as much as they can. All right. So in the lab that we have coming up here in a second, we'll be using Atomic Red Team and Blue Spawn. Once again, the goal of this lab isn't we're going to use Blue Spawn to defend our networks. I mean, you could in a pinch, but don't. You really want to focus on it as this would be a stand-in for your EDR. So let's go ahead and let's get into that particular lab. Uh, and the Blue Spawn Lab and Company won't save me. Here it is. I always look for Blue Spawn. Here we have Atomic Red Team and Blue Spawn. Now, this is kind of a long lab because we do automated testing with Atomic Red Team, and then we're going to pivot, and then you're going to actually do some manual verification testing with Metasploit, which I think is kind of important. So we're going to disable our AV. Once again, the goal of this isn't like AV stops things. We're going to bring in another surrogate AV called Blue Spawn here in just a couple of seconds. We're going to go to the Windows command prompt. We're going to start that up. We're going to change directories into the intro labs directory. And then we're going to fire up Blue Spawn client, log level cursory. And then we're going to open up PowerShell. We're going to CD to the top level directory, and we're going to download and install the Atomic Red Team. I'm going to start up my lab while we're waiting on this. So this is literally the instructions to set this up in your environment to do this type of testing and evaluation. Then you're going to CD into the Atomic Red Team and the invoke Atomic Red Team. You're going to install and make sure, verify that the proper yet another markup language modules exist. Then you're going to import the Atomic Red Team, and then you're going to run a handful of different Atomic Red Team atomics. Now, you're going to see that some of these fire and some of them don't. All right. So we got some of the old mappings. If you want to see some of the newer crosswalk mappings, you can see those. And then if you want to, you can go through and clean up. You can do that. However, what I would encourage is before you actually go through and clean up, one of the things you could do is go through the instructions in AppLocker or Sysmon to compromise your Windows computer system and then run a keystroke logger. Get a shell and do registry persistence and run get system on your computer and see what it is Atomic Red Team can actually detect in your environment as well. Now, this particular lab is going to take us up to and through the break because we have this option at the end, right? We have this whole option at the end of going through and you know, running some more stuff. And I'm gonna actually change this lab up real quick with the cleanup. I'm going to move that to the very end so we don't get to it. But the point of this is to get you experience with automation in doing this. And at the same time, how do you actually do this manually? Because you're going to run into a situation eventually in your environment where you're going to have somebody, you know what? I'm just going to delete this. Yeah, just delete that. I don't need that. YOLO. All right. You're going to have somebody in your environment that says, hey, there's a new attack that's out there. We need to be able to make sure that we can detect that attack in our environment. Instead of cleaning up your system, one of the things I recommend doing is destroying the lab at the end of this particular exercise, because there's a lot of bad things that we're doing to the things. I used to sing Drake, a lot of bad things they be wishing on me. After Kendrick Lamar destroyed Drake, I'm trying to stay away from any Drake quotes that I could possibly come across. So with that, let's get to it. Let's get rolling on this lab. If you need anything, please hit us up in technical support. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you at 10 after. I lost my Zoom controls. Like I got so many windows open. It's like, where did I put this? All right. Uh, okay. So let's go ahead and let's get through this lab. And this one is a doozy because it's actually kind of a 2-for-1 lab, right? Because we're testing atomic red team, and then we're going through all of the effort to kill a freaking fly. We're going through all of the effort to kind of create a situation where we can test manually different vulnerabilities that exist on our system. So let's go ahead and kick off our PowerShell, and we're gonna disable our antivirus. Like so. Then we're going to open up a command prompt on our system. We do this. And then we're going to cd into intro labs with it. And then we're going to start up BlueSpawn. Now, once again, the goal of running BlueSpawn is not that this is an EDR that you should be running in your environment. The goal of BlueSpawn is literally to kind of be a stand-in. So we want to do this stimulus and response testing. We do a check and we see if our EDR can actually detect the attack in our environment as well. So now let's go ahead and let's bring up PowerShell, and we're going to cd to the top level directory like so. And then we're going to install Atomic Red Team. So this is just the command. This is kind of the equivalent of wget, but wget would have been too easy for Microsoft. So they're doing it a bit different, right? So we're downloading and installing Atomic Red Team. Now, this can take a little bit of time, but I think it's really helpful to be able to see all of the things that you can do with it. While that's going, I'm going to go ahead and get my Kali terminal up and running, because once we're done with this particular part of the lab, we're going to go through and use our Kali system. So I'm just going to maximize the use of my time, kind of jump ahead a little bit, make this font a little bit larger than we have here. There we go. That looks good. Gonna set that over there for now. There we go. Now we have Atomic Red Team installed and ready to rock and roll. And now we're going to cd into the invoke atomic red team directory. Now, this is a specific tool for the atomic red team that is a harness for all of the quote unquote atomics, right? This is the tool that will allow us to invoke individual atomics, or we can invoke all of the atomics and run all of them in one shot. We don't really do it that way. And the reason why we don't do it that way is one, it takes a really long time to execute. And the other thing is it kind of smokes the system out quite a bit. It does have problems when it runs. All right, so now we're going to import the module, invoke atomic red team. There we go. Pretty easy to do. And then we're going to invoke some atomics. All right. So we're going to start with this first one. Copy. Oops. Get that copy and paste going. Okay, so apparently copy and paste has failed me. There we go. All right. So now we're going to fire off that atomic, and then we're going to watch the right-hand side. And you can see that as the atomic is doing this when logon shell key persistence, you can see that BlueSpawn detected it, right? Because we got like the when logon helper, we got the actual technique is 1004 for the old mapping of the numbers, and you can see these registry keys that are firing. Now, I like to use this kind of exact snapshot in time to talk about what it means whenever there's no detections, like we see this group policy modification cursory, 0 detections, and then we have when logon helper cursory, 2 detections. What does it mean when there's no detections and then there's 2 detections? So whenever Atomic Red Team fires and it says that there is group policy modification that happened, it says that there is group policy modification, and it is detecting that. However, whenever that group policy modification happened, it wasn't immediately correlated to any specific signature of a known attack. Does that make sense to everybody? I just want to make sure that everyone kind of groks what we're talking about here. So what we have is group policy modification happened, but it didn't match a specific signature and string. Whenever we saw the win logon helper for DLL, that saw two detections. It actually saw very specific DLLs and not DLLs. It saw very specific registry keys that matched known attack vectors. So the reason why this is so critical, it's kind of a differentiator, is a lot of the different AV products, excuse me, that are out there, they will detect stuff and it'll say like a medium alert or something like that, but it isn't actually like a critical alert that would actually jump up to the level that an analyst would look into it. And that's really what we're trying to check, is make sure that those signatures are working. So I have a couple more of these different things that we can do. We can do 03, see if this one fires anything. Pretty sure it did. Okay, so this one did not. So this is another example, right? Modifying a service. So we had a service that fired up on the system. You can see, look at this, modify service to run an arbitrary binary. You can see that it was able to see that service. Something happened to that service, but it didn't have a specific signature around that service. I'll do one more, just kind of go through this. All right, fire that one off. More registry keys, and this one did have an actual startup item where it was able to detect a lot of them, actually. All right, cool. Now, as I mentioned, I kind of already have my Kali system up and running, right? So what happens if we're trying to do, yeah, bat startup is set to start whenever you run this system. So what happens if you have a detect, right, that you don't have an atomic red team for, right? Let's say hypothetically that if we go to the CISA alerts, that there's someone out there that says, hey, there is a new attack, and this particular attack utilizes a keystroke locker. And you have management that's basically saying, well, can we actually detect this? Further, let's say that you aren't going through and detect or testing that with Atomic Red Team or whatever adversarial emulation or simulation product that you're actually using. How do you deal with that? Right? Because Atomic Red Team is great. You can run it and you can invoke Atomics all. I could do this, I'm not going to, but I could do invoke atomic tests all, and it'll run every single one of them, right? And that's great. That's wonderful. But what happens when there is not an atomic associated with it? And that's what we want to test now. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that the firewall is disabled on our Windows computer system. So we just open up command prompt. Do it from here. It's fine. All right, we're going to shut off our firewall. Once again, that's what we'd normally see in an Active Directory environment. We're going to set the password to the administrator as something that's guessable. Once again, a lot of ways that attackers can get your passwords. We're going to get our Windows IP address, like so. I'm going to slide that over here, like that. I'm going to go back to Kali, and then we are ready to launch our attack. So I'm already root. We're going to mount our Windows IP address through the share. So we'll go ahead and put in our IP address here. We go to 10.10.249.106. There we go. We now have that share mounted. Now we're going to CD. Let's go to, when was it? There we go. Kind of messed up a little bit. Let me open up another Kali prompt so we can be in the right place. There we go. There we go. And then we're going to create our malware. Get that IP address of our Linux system. There we go. And then create the malware. We're going to put in the IP address of our Linux computer system. Which is 10.10.244.226, like so. Takes a few seconds for it to run all the way. Then we're going to run our Metasploit multi-handler. We're going to run Meterpreter reverse TCP because that's our payload that we have. Could just run an exploit with this one. It's automatically going to pull it. I'll host is 10.10, oops, 10.10.244.226. That. Run the exploit. All right, there we got our payload. We have that ready to go. Open up a command prompt. Run it as administrator. See the top level directory and run trustme.exe. Now we've got our malware. All right. So at this particular point, we're kind of playing the game of, all right, I am testing this manually, right? So I know Atomic Red Team doesn't have a test for me, and I need to test this manually. So Metasploit can be a very good tool that allows you to do that type of testing on the fly. So we automate, we test for a whole bunch of different things, but then we end up in a situation where we don't have a test. What can we actually do? So one of the things we can do is we can run a key scan logger. If you remember, I did this yesterday, right? So I run a key scan logger, and then I can run test, test, test. But the thing that sucks is over here, I'm just seeing group policy modifications. I'm not seeing anything about a keystroke logger, right? There we go. You can see the keystroke logger worked, and our wonderful little security tool was not able to detect it. So now I've identified a gap. So if management is like, hey, there's this new attack out there, they're using keystroke loggers, you need to go in and you need to make sure that we can detect keystroke logger. It's like, nope, we cannot detect keystroke loggers with our current tooling that we have. Now, once again, this is why that setting up the policy to like just monitor what is actually going on. Like it allows the malware to execute, but then it alerts. Alerting non-blocking mode is what we call it, is important because it's entirely possible that your EDR would totally stop Metasploit, just kill Metasploit right away. But what about the other things that it can do, right? Like if it would stop Metasploit, I mean, that's good. But if you look at what Metasploit can do post-exploitation, there's 581 different things that it can check, right? This is a lot of ground that needs to be covered. Yep, absolutely. So you would test that gap in that testing environment, right? You would test that environment to make sure that you can actually detect these different types of things. So the next thing that we can do is we can actually get a shell, which once again, we fired up a shell. We've got nothing. It didn't detect us getting a shell. And then we can do like a registry key. Let's say that there's a malicious registry key that all the cool hackers are doing. Are we able to detect if that registry key is created? In this situation, no. Right? Try another one. I might have something cool to show you here in just a second. There it is. There it is. Got the second one. All right. So it didn't catch the first one, but it caught the second one, right? So once again, we're trying to identify that gap that exists in our environment, right? We have to identify those gaps that exist in our environment. And then we got to figure out how to plug those gaps. Because it could be one of those things we're just aware we're not going to be able to detect a keystroke logger, and that may be just fine because we have other compensating controls and network detection and response. Or maybe we feel strong enough in our initial protections for that initial access that we don't worry about this that much, right? So that's kind of the goal of what we're trying to establish with this lab. And it's also, like I said, it is a really long lab, right? Because we started off at the beginning of just testing with Atomic Red Team, but then we're taking it to that next level. How do we actually test and validate manual testing techniques as well? All right, so there we go. I am going to destroy the lab because we've done so many bad things to that VM. I got to be honest, I love the cloud instances that MetaCTF has created. Like they're cheap, they're very, very effective, they're just awesome. And Arnie being able to set this up and allowing us to do this is super great as well. All right, so let's go ahead. Oh, there's my slides. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about host-based firewalls, right? We're talking about these defensive things, like having a properly layered and implemented EDR is absolutely the most critical thing that you can do in your environment. In fact, we have backdoors and breaches. I don't know if anyone's familiar with backdoors and breaches. Let me share this out. I can go to play.backdoorsandbreaches.com. And here we go. This is backdoors and breaches. I'm going to share this out real quick right there so you can see it. And we're coming out with the competitive version of backdoors and breaches where we're creating these preparation cards and you can either attack or defend. It's very similar to like Dominion or Here to Slay are kind of the two major points of like inspiration that we got with this. And what's happening is these cards, these cards right here, these blue cards are the defensive cards. And the cost of the defensive card, because now defensive cards have a price associated with them, is tied to the utility of that card. So if you're looking at like EDR, endpoint security protection analysis, it is one of the most expensive cards to field in the game if you want to buy it and get a +3 modifier. And the reason why it's so expensive is because it is so heavily, heavily used against so many different attacks that are out there as well. Now, the other card that we have in the game is isolation. Like, how can we isolate our systems in such a way that that lateral movement that happens in the environment is restricted from the attacker? Because if you're looking at that post-exploitation lateral move stuff that Atomic Red Team tests, or MITRE tests, or any of the different tools, Bloodhound, a lot of those tools require you to have the ability to jump from workstation to workstation and workstation. So what we want to do is shut that down. How do we isolate our systems so they cannot communicate to each other? And that is what we're talking about here in the host firewalls section. So host firewalls will actually shut down a lot of the lateral movement right here, this entire column called lateral movement as well. By the way, if you come to Wild West Hack and Fest, the one in Deadwood, we will have the cards. The cards went to the publisher. Do you guys want to see the cards? Maybe? Does anyone want to see what the new cards look like? Okay, let me see if I can find them. Okay. Let me see. You think I'd be ready for this, right? Nope. Crap. That was one card. Did I save it to the system? Might have to find it during the next lab. There you go. Yes. Here we go. All right. So here we go. I'll show you some of the art. Let me resume sharing. All right. So this is the full card. Like this is the art that goes on the card. So you won't see the actual card itself, like what the whole card does, but it'll be helpful for you to get an idea of what the cards are actually doing in this environment. So one of them is accounting is proving everything, right? So this is a card that gives you more money to buy more resources, and this is the art for that card. Um, Antisyphon training is just a really cool card that gets you a defensive card of your choosing at no cost. We have Arrested in Vegas. In Arrested in Vegas, you can remove one of the opponent's cards from your environment. Oh, actually, I think it stops an opponent from doing an attack against you. Biometrics deployed, stopping attacks. What's another one? CTO on ketamine, kind of like this one. The CTOs on ketamine, you can actually get some money, and you can do an extra purchase in this round that you have. DLP deployed. This is one of my favorite cards. DLP is deployed. Nothing happens at all. It's just nothing. What do we have? Executive decision paralysis. Like, you can freeze out an opponent from having a turn. But there's all kinds of things like fake timeshare. You know, that basically is where you steal money directly from one of your opponents because you tricked the CEO into buying these. So this is a new game, Amish Brian, that's coming out, and these are the cards that are for that as well. We have malicious employee, somebody that's automatically trying to break into an environment. Nation state level red teamer becomes the CTO of your company. So these are the things that are coming with this. So it's going to be really cool. Yeah, it's a game. Actually, this game right here that's on my screen, it's modifying this game, which is an incident response tabletop exit Amish brain. It's a game. That's if you want to, you can find out how to play it, backdoorsandbreaches.com. The competitive version is coming out at Wild West Hacking Fest. So it's a new kind of like spin on the game. So no, it's coming. It's coming. Lordy, it's coming. All right. So let's go ahead and let's keep going. So segmentation, kind of that isolation becomes incredibly important for us, right? Because we can turn on our internal firewalls and it allows us to shut down a number of attacks cold, past the hash attack, past the security token, a security access token. All of these different types of attacks are basically bread and butter for a number of different hackers and pen testers that are out there. Now, you can do isolation in a number of different ways, right? You can do private VLANs, right? You can do 802.1x network access control. And really, with all of these, from host-based firewalls to network access control to private VLANs, you're trying to stop that internal hemorrhaging. You're trying to stop that internal bleeding. Because when we're looking at computer security, one of the things we have to realize is that you are going to get compromised. It is going to happen. And I hate to say this, but getting compromised is acceptable. I know that that sounds weird, but stick with me. Everyone that's listening to this is going to die. It's an acceptable thing. We all accept it at some level. Now we'll fight against it. We'll try to last as long as, but you're going to die. You're going to pay taxes. You're going to stub your toe. It doesn't mean you like these things, but you accept that those are things that happen because you exist. If you're on the internet with a company, a breach is going to happen. And that is okay. Not a good thing, not a bad thing. It's just a thing that is going to happen, like catching a cold. No one intentionally catches a cold, but you're going to be okay. What's not okay is an attacker persisting for months. What is not okay is an attacker who pivots from one workstation and takes over the rest of your network environment in a matter of minutes. And those two unacceptable points are the things that we're trying to stop. So let's visualize that. So let's say we have this standard exploit. By the way, I love the My Chemical Romance references. Fantastic. By the way, their best album, we can get into a fight, is Danger Days. That is their best album. Like, if you had to rate them, it would be Danger Days. It would be Three Cheers for Revenge. I would say Unconventional or Conventional Weapons, and a little bit lower than all of those would be The Black Parade. So we'll see if we start a fight with that. All right, so you have your standard exploit, just your standard everyday exploit. We compromise a computer system. This happens as a drive-by download, happens as a client exploit in a number of different ways. Now, the problem is whenever we move laterally off of that system that we have exploited, at that particular point, a lot of these protocols that we have here, ps_exec, which we've seen, pass the token, our desktop, and pass the hash, will not be detected. And the reason why they won't be detected in many environments is because they are built-in protocols. ps_exec is a built-in Windows protocol. Pass the token, that's Kerberos authentication. Remote desktop is just how people remotely access systems, and pass the hash is something that's associated with NTLM v2 and NTLM v1. So we see this again and again and again in environments where that initial compromise allows an attacker to pivot and move laterally across the entire environment. Now, our goal is we want to stop that. Because if we don't stop that, then this is going to happen. We're going to have ps_exec pass the token, our desktop pass the hash. We're going to compromise a whole bunch of other workstations, and then you're going to use that as leverage to gain access to a domain controller. And tools like Bloodhound test this, right? Like if we go to Bloodhound by the fine folks at SpectreOps right here, just a fantastic tool. They have an enterprise and they have a community edition. That's really cool. But we wrote another tool called Plumhound. This is by Kent. And what this does is it takes that Bloodhound data and it generates a report of the things that you need to fix. Because if we're running Bloodhound, right? If we're running Bloodhound and we detect a pathway to domain administrator, as far as pen testers are concerned, that one pathway needs to be fixed. And that makes sense, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people fix just that, that one pathway. So if we look at how that is displayed, if we go to images, this is how pathways are displayed via the graph in Bloodhound. Okay, so we have where we start and how we can get to the domain administrator level accounts. And many organizations will try to fix that one pathway or that one point that they're able to take advantage of, right? And we created a tool called Plumhound that takes all of these different things, because every single one of these paths, like they may not be complete paths, but every single one of these presents a potential pathway in the future. So consider these to be like privilege escalation vulnerabilities that exist in the environment. We don't want to just to fix the one thing. We want to fix multiple things. And Plumhound gives you that output, right? It gives you that kind of breakdown. Like, what are the domains? What are the trusts? What are the group admins? Enterprise administrators in the environment, pre-Windows 2000 compatibility with direct access members, LAPS, systems without LAPS enabled, unconstrained delegation with computers in SPM, users with pass or password in the description. This is just crazy, right? And this is what it does. But a lot of this, if we have proper firewalling enabled, not all of it, I may need to make that very clear. If we have proper firewalling enabled, it shuts down a lot of the lateral movement. Not all, but it shuts down a good amount of the lateral movement. And we're doing all of this because we need to treat the internal network as hostile. We need to treat the internal network as hostile because it is hostile. Set your internal system firewalls at the same level that they would be at a coffee shop. You can put in exceptions, right? For admin networks, for the domain controller, for email servers, for agent servers, for security, and all these different things. You can absolutely put in those exceptions in the firewall rule sets, but it's not going to allow workstation to workstation communication. You're going to need to architect your environment appropriately, where you will understand where your network infrastructure and Active Directory infrastructure servers reside. Most of those should be on their own dedicated subnets. and you can create rules that allow those subnets to come in. So it allows certain things to function, but it's going to shut down the host-to-host communication, which we are going to see in just a minute. Is this kind of like zero trust? It's part of zero trust. The biggest problem that I have with zero trust is it has turned into this marketing propaganda bullshit where people define zero trust as just what their product provides. Zero trust is not trusting the network. This is part of that, right? And that should be part of that. But zero trust can also be moving a lot of your authentication into cloud services as well, and making sure that no matter where your workstations are, the firewalls are up, they don't have any host-to-host communication, and then you go through. Just like AI, too many buzzwords. Absolutely, right? All right, so this is what it looks like for an attacker. If the attacker compromises a workstation, we have the green ick symbol workstation. Right now, at this particular point, if the attacker tries to move laterally to other workstations, running a scan, running Bloodhound, doing any number of different tools, it's going to hit that firewall. And every one of those firewalls becomes a potential detection opportunity. The firewall should be generating an alert saying that workstation A is talking to workstation B or trying to go to workstation C. We should be able to see that type of lateral movement that happens. And this is why defense in depth matters. Defense in depth matters isn't just the amount of money that you spend in your environment, but how do you interlock and layer your defensive approaches in your environment that they support and bolster each other. So if one fails, like AV, then the network is going to help protect that system. It's going to help isolate that system from moving laterally in the environment. And this ultimately, if we're looking at defense in depth, what we're really talking about is architecture. We have multiple different overlapping fields of visibility that support and bolster each other. If you look at any major building that you go into, any major building that's out there, it's actually like a miracle, like an engineering miracle that has taken thousands of years to get to this specific point that we can build architectures the way that we build them today. But all of that, and this, my wife is a structural engineer, and she hates it when I say this, but all of that is predicated on the science of failure. If you're looking at different standards like AASHTO, load factor resistance design, if you're reading through those books and analyzing those books, you will notice that a lot of those books is predicated on what the failure points are of different components. What is the failure point of certain steel beams? What is the failure component of certain wood components? What is the failure of a door if all the weight collapses on top of that door or a window and so on? All of architecture is based on failure and components analysis and understanding those components and how they interrelate with each other. Because every single component can and will fail, but how they fail matters. Do they fail gracefully? Do they fail slowly? Does it fail catastrophically? And that's what a structural engineer does. And you know what? Structural engineers and engineers in general have had amazing tools for a decade or longer that can automate a lot of the math and a lot of the component analysis design. But still to this day, you have engineers that have to sign off on architectures. They have to sign off on blueprints. And that's what we need in computer security. You see, we're developing tools that make our jobs easier. Our architectures are more complicated. The buildings we used to create were mud huts. And then some idiot named Ugg shows up and knocks over the mud hut and says, "Oh, go dual rules," and walks away, right? And then we moved up to sticks. It's kind of like the Three Little Pigs. And then we moved up to wood, and then we moved up to bricks, and then we get into steel, and then we're doing all of these different things. And our architectures are getting more and more complicated. And to be able to do the math that's required to generate a full-fledged, amazing building with architectures as complicated as what you see here is hard. And architects and engineers use automated tools to facilitate the process of their design, but we still need them. It facilitates the process because their design and their architectures are getting more complex. And that's how we need to look at artificial intelligence. That's how we need to look at automated tools as enablers that allow us to do security properly as our architectures get more and more complicated. Because this is what we're looking at. This is what defense in depth means. We have AV, EDR, network security monitoring, UEBA, SIM, all protecting an asset of the endpoint. If any one of these things is removed, there's three others that are there to pick up its place. And that's what we should be shooting for. That's what we have to be doing. Now, you can turn on your built-in Windows firewall by using NetSH ADV firewall. It is a horrible, just awful firewall. Turn it on. It is still better than not having anything at all. Also, a lot of your AV vendors that are out there today, they have built-in firewalls that you can manage from a centralized repository. You should use those if at all possible. You can put in the exceptions globally for the IPs of the networks for servers, the IPs of the networks for different backup servers, security servers, Active Directory servers. You can put in those global policies on all of your workstations, and you're going to still be able to shut down that host-to-host communication. And that brings us to our next lab. So we're now going to jump into the Nmap and firewall lab. So we're going to go here. We're going to host firewalls and Nmap. And the goal of this lab is to show you how we can shut down something that we've been doing again and again and again in this class. So we're going to turn on and off our firewall, and we're going to do a port scan of our system with the firewall on and with the firewall off. And yet again, we're going to show you if certain ports are enabled, like 445, we can access that Windows computer system easily. So we're going to then exploit our system again over port 445, and then we're going to show you how we can do pass the hash against it and things like that. And then we're going to turn our firewall on, try to rerun the attack, and it'll be shut down dead in its tracks. This lab is going to take us up to and through the break. We'll see you on the other side. Oh, hi. Welcome back. All right. So let's go ahead and let's do this lab. All right. So let me throw this over here. All right. So this is one of those labs that kind of like takes off and it's like, oh, it's kind of, oh, it logged me out again. That's kind of like, yeah, it's not, and then it's all like, oh my God, we're exploiting the system again. Which yes, we are exploiting the system again. And the reason why we are exploiting said system again, which is now powered off, I'll do that, is because we want to, oh no, I ran out of money, y'all.
It just cracks me up that you have to you have to pay for your own credits. It just
I know, but at least
every time it cracks me up.
it's like, okay, 0, 2, 7, 7. What? Oh, wait. 8, 9, 3. It's kind of like, what the hell happened here? That's kind of crazy. Yeah. I mean, I could ask Roman if I could have like the golden ticket for my labs.
You
Uh,
probably should.
one of these days, maybe, I guess. So, all right. And it's funny because it says it's active and it's like, no, it's not. So it's powering it on and we'll see how long it takes for it to power up versus just starting it. Um, God, I thought I had enough money on this. It's amazing how quickly they burn when you don't follow your own advice to start them up. But all right, we can go through this with the screenshots because my balance went away. No, it sucks so bad. All right, so we're getting the IP address and then we are opening up a Kali terminal. And then the goal of this is to run that port scan between our Kali system and our Windows system so we can get an idea of how that firewall reacts. And when the firewall is down, you see all of these ports, right? We have RPC, NetBIOS, SSN, and then we have data services, Microsoft Data Services on port 445. And then we have the terminal service ports. Now, if we turn the firewall on, the first three disappear. So that would be the equivalent of shutting down, excuse me, that lateral movement that we were talking about, right? That we would have that type of lateral movement is killed. And we're going to show you here in a little bit what it looks like when that lateral movement is killed, because one of the protocols we discussed earlier in the slides was PSExec and its capability of running remote commands. I remember it was one of the commands that's kind of built in. PSExec is actually a tool, it's used by Metasploit, but it's actually a tool by sysinternals by Microsoft, right? It's just that Metasploit has kind of reverse engineered that and has set it up so that we can use that as a protocol in order to gain access to systems. So we can see these ports when the firewall is off, when we turn it on, they disappear. And we want to show you what it looks like whenever you have that scenario of if the ports are open, that lateral movement is open as well. So that's why we have in the Kali instance where we can then utilize Metasploit to then access the system over that port. And it's really interesting with this particular lab. I know I've got like 50 some or 26 seconds to get it up, but this lab actually very clearly articulates the exact same problem that our network penetration testers are seeing on a regular basis with that post-exploitation lateral movement. So let's go ahead and let's jump back and let's connect into my VM now that I have money. It's kind of sad that, yes, I have to beg, borrow, and steal and pay for the servers that I'm paying for. By the way, did you know, Megan, that I am the #1 customer for the virtual labs?
I'm
Uh,
sure, and I'm sure Erica sees the charges and she's
This
like,
is
"What
like,
is this
what
one
is
for?"
this? What is going on? This is just crazy. So we're going to start right up here, right? So we're going to go through, we're going to disable the firewall, we're going to set the password to an easy to guess password or an easy to gain access password. Still waiting for the VM to fire up the rest of the way. And I'm going to show you why this is so important because it actually, believe it or not, this lab kind of matches the real world, like a lot. And I know that that kind of blows people's mind. They're like, well, you know, an attacker wouldn't be able to move laterally like this. Yes, they actually would. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that the firewall is disabled. That's perfectly normal because most Active Directory environments, the firewall is disabled because as soon as the system enters the environment, firewall goes down. It's like that uncle that just kind of comes over to your house for the holidays and like unbuckles his pants, like, oh, I had a lot to eat. You're like, you're way, way too comfortable in my living room right now. So we're going to set that administrator password to password 1234. Now we're going to run ipconfig. I'm going to throw it over here like that. And then we're going to do some metasploiting. All right. So right now the firewall is down, right? So I should have that ability to be able to get into the system because I can access those specific ports. And we'll do a quick port scan and I'll show you what it looks like here in just a couple of seconds. So I'll do that. So do nmap and we're going to run this against 10.10.196.12. And you're going to see that that RPC port is open, specifically 445. So I'm going to become root and we're going to fire up MSF console. Quiet. There we go. And this takes a little while for it to start. So if I have that port open, right? Let's assume that I am sitting at this computer system. I have compromised a workstation via an exploit or a drive-by download. Somehow I got malware to execute on a victim's computer system, right? So if I can get that malware to execute, what the goal of this lab is kind of showing you is that lateral movement becomes really, really possible. And there's a bunch of really awesome ways that you can make that lateral movement fire. So we're going to go through the standard stuff that we've done a number of times, right? So I became root. We're firing up MSF console. I'm going to get my IP address as soon as I get this. I can actually just fire up another Kali instance and get my IP address. There we go. So ifconfig, my Linux IP address is 10.10.214.142. Throw that down here. There we go. Now we're ready to rock and roll. All right, so we're going to use ps-exec because once again, that's a built-in protocol on a Windows environment. Then we're going to set the rhost to be the Windows IP address. So I'll paste that in and replace the IP address with 10.10.196.12. There we go. Then we're going to set the lhost to be my Linux IP address. Right, so we're going to put that in as 10.10.214.142. Then we're going to set the SMB user to administrator. And then we're going to set the SMB pass to password 1234, right? And then exploit. All right, so because that 445 port is open, now I can actually authenticate to that remote computer system, start up the service that invokes PowerShell, downloads the malware, executes that malware by injecting it directly up into memory, and then it opens up an interpreter prompt for me. All right, we've done this, right? But I want to show you what happens whenever an attacker is on a workstation, right? Like let's say I'm sitting on this workstation and let's say hypothetically that this password was not password 1234. So I'm going to do hash dump, right? So here I've got hash dump and you can see the administrator's password hash for NT is D4A1BE1776. Okay, that's a weak password. But let's say we have somebody that's smarter, right? Let's say that I have a password that's not password 1234. Let's say it's this. Now I got a question. Would you say that that's a strong password, chat? Just out of curiosity, folks, like, would you say that that is a strong password? I mean, it's definitely long, right? So watch what happens now. So now if I do hash dump, you can see that that password hash has changed from D4A1 to 6562. All right, so we have that password hash has changed. Now watch this. I'm going to go Control Z and I'm going to background that session. All right. So now what we're going to do with ps-exec is instead of putting in that SMB that SMB password as password 1234, I'm not even going to put in that password because there's no way in hell I'm ever going to crack this password. All right. That is never going to happen. So I'm not even going to bother. Instead of actually trying to crack that password, I'm just going to use the password hash. And this is something that a lot of people don't know. Windows authentication is pretty much clear text. Pretty much it's clear text. Let me show you how. So I don't have to know what the password is. I just don't. So if I hit enter and I set this up with ps-exec and I'm using the password hash instead of the password itself, I can still hit exploit and it's going to authenticate to that system. Uh-oh, did I not capture the entire password? I bet you I didn't. Hmm. Let me delete that and try that again. Let me open this up. There we go. Let's do this. Okay. Did I copy the wrong one? Maybe I did. Oh, I did. I copied the top one. So I tried to copy the pass the hash for the first one, which we're not doing the first one. We're doing the second one. These powers combined. All right. There we go. Maybe. There we go. It worked. Yeah, I did. I changed the password in the hash. I can authenticate without even cracking the password. Okay. And like I said, this is actually a really, really, really important kind of point to get to is once you're on a box, you can move laterally really easily, right? Like we can do it with pass the hash. We could also not even do this with a hash because once you have authenticated as a valid user in this particular computer system, as soon as you are validated as that user, you've been granted a domain token and you can move laterally. So I can do Control Z, background that session right there. So we have that session and I can exit. It's Y. Now let me show you what happens whenever we turn on the firewall. So if I take the firewall and turn it on, that's all I've got to do. As soon as I try to re-exploit that system, we're going to get a timeout for port 445. Got my heart beating there for a second, chat. Yeah, it's unreachable. The connection timed out. No session was created. So that shows that importance of trying to shut down that lateral movement, right? And this is an easy thing that you can do across your entire environment. I'm going to destroy the lab because once again, bad things have been done to this particular system, right? So this shows that importance of kind of shutting down that lateral movement. And, you know, one of the things I've done in the past life and somewhat to a lesser extent in the current iteration of my life is doing the whole like, you know, nation state level attack type things, right? Because years ago, working with Northrop Grumman and then also doing some things more recently, we've done some offensive stuff for nation states, right? And I will tell you, like historically, not more recently, but historically, whenever I was doing these things, if I ever got access to an environment and that particular environment had, let's say, you know, a really, really solid approach to had a really, really solid approach to internal segmentation, which was rare. It wouldn't happen all that often. We would end up in a scenario where I would basically have to get approval before I could proceed. And most of the time, when we are going to like commanding officers, you would be told just to back out because you didn't want to burn any TTPs associated with that particular exploit or that attack in that environment, because you're going to get burnt. I mean, at BHIS, if you have an organization that has a full EDR, they have firewall segmentation, they have a full SIM with UEBA, like you're in trouble. You're absolutely in trouble at that point. Yeah, you're not going to have a good time. Let's put it that way, right? It's going to be a bad day and you're going to have a bad time dealing with that bad day. So we would just back out. And unfortunately, we do get some customers that are totally like, yeah, lead hackers wouldn't get caught. And it's like, I'm pretty sure they would in this situation. So it's tough, right? So we want to make it hard. Like I keep saying, like one of the goals of Black Hills Information Security is to make our lives more difficult. All right, so we're going to go through internet allow listing and we're going to talk a little bit about good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods on the internet because I'm kind of excited about a new lab that I just created. I tested out, worked this morning. I wrote it at 2 o'clock this morning, chat. All right, so MITRE, what we're trying to do with internet allow listing is we're really trying to kill persistence. We're trying to kill command and control and data exfiltration. And we're trying to do that by restricting what are the IP addresses that people can actually connect to. Now, there's a number of ways that we can do this. One of the primary ways that you can do this is you can do it with deny lists. And unfortunately, this is the way that most organizations think. And this goes back to what I was discussing earlier, where UG and Thug, right? Like UG and Thug are like eat the mushroom, right? They would learn, well, don't eat that mushroom. Don't go swimming with sharks. Don't snuggle with polar bears, whatever they can come up with. They say, don't do that. And the reason why they say don't do that and reason why they work that way is because human beings are built around deny lists because our threat matrix doesn't change that quickly. Mushrooms don't evolve that quickly. Polar bears all of a sudden don't develop hoverboard capabilities. It's just not something that happens. But when we're looking at the internet, it's big, like really big. You wouldn't believe how vastly mind-bogglingly huge mind-bogglingly it is. Most of it is worthless, actually, and it's also evil. And a lot of your users will not stop clicking until they visit every single site on the internet, right? That's just what they're doing. Now, to get around this at BHIS and other companies like SpecterOps and Trusted.Sec and Red Siege and Secure Ideas, one of the things that we have to do is we have to acquire domains because I just cannot go out on the open internet and just start hacking random sites and using those legit sites as command and control servers. That's what our adversaries do. So we have to do is kind of play around the edges. Like, how do we actually pull that out? So one of the things we can do is we can look at domains that are for sale and we can buy domains that are already been pre-categorized. Let me explain. This is a tool that we wrote that we need to re-update called Domain Gain. It's a Python script by Full Metal Cache or Brian Furman. And what it does is it pulls down a list of expired domains. It sorts those domains by URL, and then it tests their ACR and SimWeb score. How trustworthy, quote unquote, is this particular domain? So if we have the domain for a church, let's say St. James Church, it was a church that existed in Brazil, went out of business, domain came up for sale, we bought it. And it was a high trust domain. It was under religious. So therefore, we created command and control servers around this religious domain to get our command and control out of the environment, right? So we can look at that SimWeb score, we can look at the ACR score, we can do sorting by the URL, and then we can come back and give you the pricing, right? So here's 50 domains. We have warrantnavi.net, brokerage and trading. It's available for $7.65. We had Oregon City Parks. Are we dead in the water?
No, we're
Nope, looks like,
fine.
yeah, I just got the internet is unstable thingamajiggy.
Oh yeah, you're good. You're good.
All right, thank you. All right, Oregon City Parks. That would be great. If I am pen testing, let's say somebody in Oregon City, I could find this domain and I can start sending in things saying, hey, your parking tickets are not paid. You need to pay them. It's an org and it's government and legal. That's pretty crazy. Entertainment for Reich, A32, Technology Internet, ebuy.org. Charitable organizations, odyssey.org, right? That would have been a cool one. And then Blood Saves Lives, it's health. So we would buy these domains to kind of get around the different protections that we have in place, right? So let's play a game. Just what do you think? Like, how many quote unquote legitimate websites do you think your users actually go to? Like on a day-to-day basis, legitimate users surfing websites, like how many legit websites do you think people go to? I'm not talking individuals, but across an organization, right? This is kind of one of those problems with the acidification of the internet, right? Like, what are some of the sites that everyone goes to? We would have like Facebook, right? YouTube. Lots of people going to YouTube, to Facebook, Google, the Google services. What else? Spotify. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So I work at a small school, 95%, right? So you have a very limited number of sites that people go to, right? You would have like Instagram, you would have TikTok, you would have those types of things. I'm hoping not porn, unless you work at a porn company. We had a company that we were doing a threat assessment for, and we noticed that they had no filtering to porn sites. And we're like, hey, you guys have no filtering to porn sites. And they're like, well, we're a porn company. And I'm like, what? And we didn't know. They were just entertainment and they didn't advertise on their website was. Got Microsoft productivity. Yep, absolutely. So if you want to know, look and find out. Go to your egress web proxy and take a look and see what it is that people are going to. But let's say we allow them with some level of reason, right? We allow people to go to Facebook, go to LinkedIn and all that, but we remove ads, right? That's just kind of an important thing. We remove ads because we need to let them die. What would your exposure be? Turns out, once again, users don't go to a terribly diverse number of websites. They tend to go to the exact same ones again and again and again and again. And one of the things I'm trying to push is the idea with tools like Pi-hole, absolutely. I'm trying to push the idea that we should truly stop allowing users to go to non-business related websites. And I know that some organizations are like, well, from an HR perspective, we have to make sure that people are happy and they're well adjusted and they can get to these things. And I think that that whole argument is garbage. And the reason why I think that that argument is garbage is because of this, right? Most people, when they are going and surfing the internet, they're doing it through their mobile devices. So if they want to check their personal email, it's on their mobile device. If they want to look at TikTok, it's on their mobile device. If they want to do Instagram, it's on their mobile device. So why don't we just allow people, unless you're in DoD or sensitive environments, do your private surfing on your phone and your computer is only used for work-related activities? It's just an idea, and I know it's crazy. But let's talk a little bit about ads because I think that ads are terrifying. So let's go ahead and let's do a quick search for NSO group, right? So does anybody remember what NSO group, like why is NSO group famous? Anyone know? Pegasus. What was Pegasus, Witherwolf? Spyware. Isn't ad blocking ads a legal issue? That's interesting. Let's talk about that here in just a second. All right. So when you're looking at NSO group, a lot of people got really worked up over the spyware, the malware that they were creating. This company creates malware that you can deploy on phones, iOS, Android devices, and Windows and Linux computer systems. That's what they do. And it's interesting because I don't find that interesting at all. Like the fact that they can create malware that runs on a phone is, yeah, there's a bunch of people that can do that, right? I mean, it's not as common as Metasploit by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, there's lots of people that have those skills to be able to create malware, especially at the nation state level. But the most interesting thing about Pegasus is or about NSO Group in particular, is their delivery mechanism. See, NSO Group has the capability to deploy malware via zero-click ads. So if we go to the slide, I'm like, remove ads, kill them, just get rid of ads. You shouldn't allow ads in your environment whatsoever. They're just bad. Bad, bad, bad. Just kill them. And NSO group, you have the ability to be able to draw a rectangle or a square around the specific geographic location, and you can deploy malware to a very specific profile. So if you're looking at it, it's very difficult to say deploy malware to John's computer. But you can say, I want to deploy malware to a computer system that spends a lot of time on Reddit and specifically visits information security sites at this specific location. Like within a 3-block radius around me, I'm the only one. It wouldn't be hard to look at me and look at my profile and get an idea of what would be the type of ads that could be delivered. And they can go inside the ad networks and they can deliver zero-click malware to the device and compromise that device without actually trying to get the user to click on anything, right? And that's impressive. It doesn't mean that they're good people. I want to make it very clear, even though I have nothing but mad respect for NSO Group. Let me explain why, because it's just like crazy cool. Who are the people that have deployed NSO and Pegasus and their malware? Like, who are the different organizations that have done that? So if we're looking at the Wikipedia, we have the Pegasus software, right? So who has been deploying it? We've got Discovery. We have Emirati Human Rights. So the Emiratis were using it. Chronology. Oh, we see that Saudi Arabians were using it, right? Right? Remember the guy that was chopped up alive? Yeah, he was attacked by the Saudis. What else? We got Kaspersky Labs found it in Russia. So we've had a number of different organizations that have done this, but just the organizations that I listed out. If we're looking at Saudi Arabia, if we're looking at Turkey, if we're looking at the Emiratis, if we're looking at all of these different places. Here we go. Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bangladesh, Bahrain, I can't remember, Djibouti, I think is what it is. Dominican Republic, Egypt, El Salvador, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Hungary, India. I'm going to read them all to you. Iraq, of course, Israel. Duh. That would absolutely be there. Jordan, Kazakhstan, Latvia, Mexico, and Morocco, Netherlands, Panama, Palestine, right? Now that was actually the Israelis that did that one, right? All right. So if we're looking at all these countries that have deployed this, right? A number of these countries are what you would call enemies to Israel. And somehow Israel has spun off a company, right, from Israeli defense that has somehow gotten into all of these enemies of Israel, and they're paying for it. This is like a self-licking ice cream cone, right? Yeah, when we're no, so when you're look, and it's not just places that were targeted by NSO Group and Pegasus. A lot of these countries, like we're talking Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia was using it. Jordan was using it. So you have a lot of these companies that Witherwolf just brought up are customers, and they're countries that have sworn that Israel should be completely deleted from the planet. So think about this. Israel is selling these people this product, and it's giving the Israeli government direct access to the most sensitive operations these governments are doing, many times against their own citizens. That's insane, right? And this all comes back and it boils down to advertisements, right? Specifically, malicious advertisements and their ability to deploy malicious advertisements. So you come back to, do you really want your systems to be getting ads being filtered to them? I mean, I want to go back to this abomination of a website, right? Like, this is just horrible. I just go to yahoo.com. This is awful, right? I mean, we have games, horoscopes, weather, ad, more games, more ads. What is it? The Yodel? Wake up with Yahoo? Like, what the hell is this crap? Right? This is what a normal website looks in the environments that many people are surfing today, right? There's tons of ads that are coming down to it and just kind of just flooding your browser with all of this different garbage. And we don't know where it's actually coming from. And it actually gets even worse than that. We started creating tools and things like ad blockers. Right now, if you're looking at YouTube, you go to YouTube with an ad blocker, YouTube basically says F you, right? They don't even want you to have an ad blocker. Many websites, if I go to the website with an ad blocker, it'll pop up and say, oh, I see that you're running an ad blocker. You can't visit our website. You need to allow our website as in your ad blocker, you need to allow listed. And that is a huge way that people get compromised all of the time, all the time with this. So this is something that frustrates me, right? Because this is, I hate to say it's a conspiracy, but let's roll with that. It is, in fact, a conspiracy. The browser companies, Chrome and Firefox and everybody else, they're, except for like Brave and maybe a couple of others, they are completely built around the idea of delivering ads. It isn't about improving your web browsing experience unless it allows them to deliver ads more effectively to you. Once again, do we need these ads for us to do our jobs in computer security on a day-to-day basis? And I would put forth the answer is no, right? So this is the same as when a website asks about cookies. Nope. It's different. Cookies, a lot of the cookies will track and profile you. And that's what they're doing from a tracking and profile perspective. But the actually delivery mechanism coming through Google or going through Amazon or going through Facebook is different. So the cookies allow you to track you across multiple different websites, creating a full profile of who you are. And then you would have the advertisement companies would actually feed you the specific ads. Um, oh, schnizzle. There was a great um, website or a great episode of it. Was it John Oliver ads? And they went through and they talked about how ads can be targeted right here, data brokers. If you want to get an idea of just how messed up this is, you've got to watch the data brokers episode of John Oliver because they do a really, really good job of kind of going over how targeted it can be. Witherwolf, what about the ads built into Windows platform? I only started seeing Teams recently. I haven't seen Teams ads yet. Are they showing up in Teams? Ooh. I don't think we're allowing them in our environment. I'm betting that D-Rock has actually shut them down. But yeah, and that goes back to like one of my problems with artificial intelligence, right? One of the big problems I have with AI is people are looking at AI and like, whoa, this is amazing. And literally, if you're looking at Facebook, you're looking at Amazon, you're looking at all these different providers, they, from an AGI perspective, they're trying to develop better and better ad delivery mechanisms to create a more addictive internet to get us more ads, which sucks because I don't need any more ads. Like in my life, I got all I can take, man. That's about all that I can take. So that's somewhat difficult when we're looking at it. All right. So that's ads, right? So if we allow people to just kind of go to legitimate sites, if we just disable the ads, our overall attack surface has just dropped dramatically. Now, when you're looking at categories, I want to call attention to like when you're filtering and you're blocking different categories. There's a number of different categories that you can say I just want to block, right? Like we can say I want to block gambling, I want to block alcohol, I want to block adware, I want to block compromised websites. Going to leave criminal skills and hacking. Let's keep that one. We have all these different sites. I don't want hate speech, illegal drugs, those might be awesome. Let's go ahead and kill that one. Mature pornography, you want to shut that down, nudity, whatever. But there's one category that people forget about, and it's this one right here, uncategorized. Now, the beautiful thing about uncategorized is you can actually set up really solid allow listing of the internet if you just block this one category. And the reason why you want to block this one particular category is because if Google and Microsoft and Palo Alto or whoever, Cisco, Umbrella, has never seen a domain and has never seen a website and it has never been categorized, is that something that you want your users to go to? I'm sorry, I blocked alcohol, and it kind of became a thing, right? Like, what? We're going to block alcohol, right? So if we're looking at it, all you really need to do is block uncategorized to get a really good solid amount of allow listing. Because if we're looking at websites that are legit websites like cars, transportation, news, all of these different sites, if it's been categorized, it's been seen and it's been somewhat validated. But if all of a sudden you have like a website like monkeys with AK-47s or smoking monkeys. Look, he's taking another puff at .com. No one's seen that website. No one's gone to that website. It's not been categorized. You want to kill that website with fire. And the reason why you want to kill that with fire is because a lot of attackers, they are setting up and buying domains, and then they're keeping them for less than 2 weeks and then returning those domains. And the reason why they're doing that is according to the rules of the internet, if somebody buys a domain and they return it within a 2 week period, they can get a full refund. So attackers are literally buying up new domains that have not been seen before, have not been categorized, that are fresh, use them for a very short period of time, and then return them. So when you're investigating that domain, it no longer exists, right? So it's very, very, very important that we can block this uncategorized category, because if we've never seen it, that's probably not something you want your users going to at all. Now, one of the other things you can do is you could allow list every website, and that's done most of the time. Allow list specific categories, right? But what if you did a pop-up? Somebody was talking about Pi-hole. I think Pi-hole is really super interesting because Pi-hole, you can set it up if somebody goes to a domain for the first time, does a pop-up and it says, hey, you're going to this domain for the first time. We're going to log that you are going to this domain. Are you sure you want to go to this domain? And it's weird, but a lot of users, whenever they see this pop-up that's like, hey, I'm going to record on your permanent record that you went to this specific domain. Do you want to proceed? It's almost like this stupid 5 second rule where someone's like, think about it before you continue. A lot of people just back off, right? They're like, maybe I don't want to go to smokingmonkeys.com. Seemed like a good idea, but if I think about it a little bit more, maybe I don't. And Pi-hole does this, but it's interesting. One of my friends, Mubix, Rob Fuller, and I were talking about it, and he was talking about trying to get command and control out of an environment that does that, where the first time you try to go to a domain, it does a little pop-up and it says, yo, are you sure you want to go to this domain? Shuts down a tremendous amount of command and control because the command and control doesn't know how to click accept. It's got no arms. It's like an Infosec T-Rex, and it can't do it. So it's kind of nuts, but that's one of the coolest things that I've seen in Pi-hole as well. Also, you can get compromised via a legit site. That is absolutely a possibility, especially if you're allowing people to run ads, right? But what's weird is if you go to websites like Drudge, Facebook, movie sites, porn sites, any of those sites, and you get compromised, many times the initial compromise comes from an ad service, but the actual command and control is a completely different C2 site. It's a completely different command and control server, on a completely different part of the internet. Is Facebook a legit site? I don't know. There's a lot of companies that are allow listing it specifically from a marketing perspective. So their marketing team is generating Facebook ads. They want to make sure the Facebook ads are being rendered properly and that they're showing up and they're tracking it so they have it to go through. So, oh wow, that's awesome. Somebody smoking monkeys with AK-47s.com. That's actually a surprisingly good rendering of it. I would have thought it a little bit different, but well done, AI. Well done. So you may still get that initial compromise that gets pushed down, but that C2 would not necessarily be allowed as well. Other things that I recommend would be like OpenDNS. It's kind of funny. Have any of you ever volunteered to help at a school to like help lock down their security? It gets a bit weird from time to time. I made this mistake. Um, I made this mistake twice. One was a public school. My kids were going to a public school in the area where my kids were. And they ended up with a whole bunch of porn on their computers in their computer lab. So they wanted me to come in and help clean it up. So I went in and I helped clean it up. And of course, their first thing was this the computer teacher's fault for allowing this to happen? It always blows my mind how quickly, especially in school systems, they want to jump to finding out who they can blame. And usually that's a blame defection mechanism or deflection mechanism where they're like, well, if I can blame the security or if I can blame the computer teacher, then it's not the principal's fault. But I went in and I helped them clean everything up and got some things kind of locked down in their environment. And it was really, like I said, it was a little bit uncomfortable because there was a lot of people that were asking, like, whose fault was this? And I'm like, if you're looking for someone to blame, I'm just going to ask you a question. What type of school is this? And they'd be like, it's a middle school. It's like, do I really need to spell out what's going on here? And they still would like to blame a teacher. Well, the teacher allowed the students to go there. It's like, no, middle school students are super geniuses to get porn and get video games working on school computers. It's just crazy. So that's one. The other one, when we were traveling a lot with the kids, I was on a plane and we were going all over the place, and we made a decision to have the kids travel with us. So we were doing homeschooling with a co-op, and the co-op had a building and they ran like a normal school and they were flexible with our schedule, and that was great. And they wanted me to implement computer security in their environment. So the first thing I did is I went into their router and I enabled open DNS on their router. And I was going through and I set up all the categories that you would have in here, like alcohol, drugs, gambling, underwear, bikini, sexuality, adult themes, hate, discrimination, tasteless, nudity, all of these things. And after I got it set up, I could track it and I could modify it and I could update it and I could do everything I needed with it. And one of the people that was working there as an instructor was contacting me. I was like, hey, it's not working. I can't get to certain websites that I normally could. And I'm like, what websites? Well, just internet websites, general internet websites. I can't get to those. Can you give me a list of the websites you can't get to? No, it's just general websites. It's not working. I just can't get there. And sure enough, that particular individual at the school was trying to go to porn websites and they couldn't from work anymore. And it was really, really, really incredibly creepy. So their solution was to rip out the router that I had OpenDNS installed on and they put something else in. That's when I learned no good deed ever goes unpunished, especially when you're working with the school system and that as well. When you're also looking at DNS over HTTPS, this is another way that a lot of people can get around any security restrictions that exist in an organization. So if I'm using something like OpenDNS and I'm doing filtering in that environment, a lot of browsers and students learn how to do this. Yeah, they didn't. Well, they're not. That's I mean, they all graduated from high school, thank God. But a lot of students find out very quickly that they can bypass protections by using DNS over HTTPS. And this kind of makes sense from an altruistic perspective because you'll have people that say, well, in certain countries, if someone tries to go to a website, they can get hung from goalposts on a soccer field. I understand and I empathize with that completely. But a lot of the advocates for DNS over HTTPS are the companies that are running DNS over HTTPS servers. And they're just trying to get more power because if you can become DNS, you basically own the internet for everybody that goes through your DNS services. And if it's completely encrypted, as an organization, we lose visibility into what people are actually doing. So I recommend that we kind of block DNS over HTTPS in corporate environments so that people can't bypass the security controls that we put in place to try to protect our users from going to potentially malicious domains that are out there as well. All right, so now I want to go into a lab before we get into vulnerability management. We're actually going to do a couple of labs. So the first, well, we're going to do one and then we're going to close out today. This is the new lab that I created, if I can find it. Hmm. All right, I can just browse directly to it and throw it in. So let me go back to class files, go to tools. Scroll down to ASN. All right. So one of the things I want to show you is kind of like what the badness of the internet actually looks like. So if you look at anytime someone deny lists an IP address, a lot of times when they deny list those IP addresses, they create these lists. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you how a lot of the evil on the internet is concentrated in a very small number of ASNs. For those of you that don't know, an ASN is an autonomous system number, and it basically describes a zip code for IP addresses on the internet. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the internet and we're going to look at the worst places of the internet to get a better understanding of what this actually looks like on the internet as well. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to wget GitHub of this raw user content. You're going to pull down this ipsum, ipsum.txt. These are a bunch of deny listed IP addresses from multiple different sites. Then you're going to feed each of those into Kimry via netcat. And we're going to grep out the ASN name and we're going to find the ASN for every single one of those deny listed IP addresses. And I'm hoping to God we don't crash Kimry service doing this. It's possible. It happens more often than you'd think. It's the BHIS hug of death. Then what we're going to do is we're going to print out the deny listed IP address count per ASN or zip code on the internet, and you're going to look at a number of them. Now this lab is going to take us up to and through the break, so we'll resume at, let's go quarter after, so 15 after, gives us a little bit of time for break. It really doesn't take that long. The longest part of this lab is actually sending all of the IP addresses to Kimry to get those to show up. By the way, if you're like, isn't it Kimru? It's Welsh. So there you go. So it's pronounced Kimry. So we're going to go ahead and set that timer, set it up for 18 minutes, and then we'll come back and then I'll do a walkthrough and we'll talk about it. But this kind of gets an idea of kind of what evil looks on the internet. And also it's going to give you an idea of the concentration of evil on the internet. All right, so let's get going. If you need any assistance, please hit us up on tech support. Oh, good point. Good point. Good point. I have to give you the direct link for it. So there is the lab that we are doing right now. So there you go. And yes, it does take a while. This one goes really fast. The first one, we're pulling it down. And you're going to see my cursor move because I'm going to go through the steps because the second one takes a while for it to actually fire. All right, so let's get rolling. I'll see you on the other side, everybody. Right. So let's go through this. So once again, kind of what is the goal of what we're doing here? Well, we're kind of talking about the internet and how we can kind of start changing the way that we look at the internet. Like, how do we identify what is evil, what is bad, what is good, and kind of an understanding of how the internet works helps out a lot with us trying to get to that point. So what I kind of want to start with is this is what an ASN table looks like. This is what routers are sharing all over the internet to basically identify, what are the final got you. What are the different IP addresses and the responsibility of the different companies that are on the internet, right? So if you're looking at the internet, we've got like this range, we've got 1.0.0.0/24. That's owned by Google, right? So that's owned by Google. So that massive network range, anything that starts with one is owned by Google. And then
Hey
1.28.0.0
John,
slash, oh,
real quickly, is your screen share paused maybe? It's just gray on our side. Can you try to reshare? Oh,
how's
there it
this?
goes. There it is.
There we go. All right. There we go. All right. So we can see that this network range is owned by Google, and it has this ASN number. Now, an ASN number is a 16-bit value. So there's 65,536 possible values, and there's only about 120,000 ASNs out there, right? So that doesn't mean that there's only 120,000 companies, because you can have a company like Comcast that owns a whole bunch of ASNs, or AT&T that owns a massive number of ASNs. Microsoft owns a lot of ASNs. So once again, these are zip codes, and they're getting into the responsibility of who owns that IP range. Now, when you send a packet out on the internet, it gets routed to these ASNs based on the responsibility of who's in charge of that ASN. So if I were to go through and do trace routing online, a trace route, do this, and I do a trace. I don't want any. I really don't want alerts. If I do a trace route to 8.8.8.8, it's going to show me that network path that those packets are going to go to. And it's going to bounce through a number of different routers. And those routers' sole purpose in life is to route that traffic to the ASN that's responsible for 8.8.8.8. And as Brian just pointed out, many of the ASNs that are out there are still the wild, wild west, right? What was the name of that band? Something Club? The Escape Club? I can't remember. They had a song called Wild, Wild West that was a big hit in the 80s. Something Club. It wasn't Culture Club. I can't remember. But whenever we're routing traffic on the internet, we want it to go to these ASNs. So what we want to do is answer the question, how safe are these different ASNs that were actually Escape Club? That's it. So we wget a list of IP addresses that are known bad IP addresses, right? So if we do that, then we can feed each one of those known bad IP addresses into Kimry, and we can pull down what is the AS name and actually the number for each one of those IP addresses. Then we can feed it through awk and sort unique, and we can get a count for how many bad IP addresses exist in each ASN. And what we quickly come up with was this list of all of the worst offenders on the internet. So this is the worst of the worst neighborhoods on the internet. What are the different network ranges that have the most evil? Now, one of the things I want you to look at for this is just how quickly the number of bad IP addresses in each one of these ASNs drops off. If we're looking at China 169 backbone, China Unicom, China 169 backbone, it has 9,314 bad IP addresses. That's a really bad part of the internet. China backbone number 31, that one has 7,988. What the hell is going on at China backbone? It looks like the Great Firewall of China might be a bit porous. Maybe we should call it the Great Sieve of China. Okay, that's an Infosec dad joke. That wasn't good. That was not one of my best moments. We're going to let that one slide, right? Then we get to DigitalOcean. Now, the reason why you see things like DigitalOcean and a little bit lower, you can see Google Cloud, you can see Microsoft Corp as well, is those are the ASNs where cloud services reside. So if somebody wants to start up an instance like a VDI out on the cloud, they would go to DigitalOcean and then they would host that. And DigitalOcean has a lot of self-hosted websites, and a lot of those self-hosted websites have massive security vulnerabilities in them, and they just happen to reside on DigitalOcean. They happen to reside in Google Cloud. They happen to reside in Microsoft Corp and Amazon AES. So you can see how these work. Now, watch what happens though when I start scrolling down. We very quickly go. Now, once again, I want you to remember there's roughly 120,000 active ASNs on the internet right now today. And if we go through one page, we go from 9,314 down to 741, which is a reduction factor of more than 10. As I go down, we can get down to less than 100 very, very, very quickly, right? So this is fascinating to me because even though it looks like a lot, compared to 120,000, it's actually not that many out there that have number of bad IP addresses. So when we're looking at what the internet is, we have a lot of bad IP addresses out there, right? We do. But there's a lot more ASNs that are actually pretty clean. Those would be ASNs like Microsoft Update. Those would be ASNs like, I don't know, any type of service that's being used by Amazon for their individual services like Kinesis and data ingest and things of that nature. So you see these ASNs that really are pretty clean. Now we got some questions in here. For clarity, ASNs are only on the visible web, not the dark web. That's interesting, Brian, because it actually can be both. Because remember, the visible web is the dark web. I know that that seems weird, but when you're looking at what people consider to be the visible web, they consider that to be the web that is directly indexed and easily searchable by services like Google. However, if we're looking at the dark web, we're looking at services and things that are not indexed by Google or open services. So it's entirely possible for you to have something on the internet that is not directly accessible by Google that would be considered dark web, right? That gets into a weird kind of space. And there's also a lot of dark web out there that isn't necessarily evil. If you're looking at things like LexisNexis, monster database of resources that is not directly accessible from the open internet. So that kind of explains the dark web. Oh my God, we're doing ATT&CK. I think that was one of the best albums of the 80s, like hands down, right? That The Real Thing by Faith No More. I went through and I re-listened to Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, and I'm just blown away. Just absolutely great albums. But In should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for that album alone. Every song is just slamming. All right. So there you go. We're kind of breaking these different things down, developing a better understanding of what's going on. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to jump right in and we're going to talk about egress network traffic analysis. And we're going to get into a read lab that you will be able to play with, but I don't have time to get into that right now. I want to start out tomorrow. Then we'll go into vulnerability management. We have three labs. We're going to do a read lab. We're going to do a vulnerability management lab for web, and we're also going to do an Active Directory configuration lab of Ping Castle, which is pretty cool, which is really, really super cool. And by the way, the lead singer of NXS passed away a number of years ago. That was really sad. All right, so we are now officially at Ask Me Anything. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to pivot over to the Discords. So what questions do you all have for me? Once again, totally beat now. I know I'm saying, oh, it was built for this. It's kind of like male, like jackass bravado. But man, I spent a lot of time teaching. Oh my God, yes, Enjoy the Silence. Was that on Violator? Was that the album? I can't remember which album that was. No, Enjoy the Silence is one of the greatest songs, but I can't remember if it was on the Violator album or not. Somebody will remind me of that. Anything by The Cure was great. Say it again. Are blocking ads a legal issue? Nope. You can block ads all you want. There's no legality with that. Now you have some people out there. Yeah, it's Depeche Mode, but I can't remember what album it was. Violator it was. Was your own personal Jesus on that one as well?
Yes, that's
Okay,
my
there we go.
favorite.
Johnny Cash like did a cover of that. That was amazing. All right. So, any advice for a Win Systems administrator trying to do, transition into paid security work? Well, Pale Horse, you're in the right place. There we go. Sign up for the ACE-T certification. Take it at a later date. It's like, look, we're trying to create a new way of doing certifications out there. And kind of getting into this, like a lot of security training and the certification became a scam. And I'm not going to crap actually on CISSP. If we're looking at what ISC Squared did, they came out with a relatively affordable cert. Now, they did have CPEs and your maintenance fees, but it was affordable and it was accessible to a large number of people. It was actually, I think, the first cert that I ever received, like CISSP number 20,000, which actually is a pretty low number. But I got it. I don't have it anymore. I stopped paying my dues. I did have one customer a while ago that's like, I don't know if I can trust you because you don't have a CISSP. It's like, okay, cool. We moved on with our lives. He was happy. I was too. But if you're looking at getting started, something like CISSP is very affordable. But you also have a lot of certifications and training where they've tried to couple the training with the certification and really just kind of turned it into this like cash cow. And also, I don't know, did I talk about the certification, Megan?
We talked about it. It's in the resources channel, how
It
to get
is. It
started
is.
and stuff. Yeah.
So I basically, Zach and I hate multiple choice certification tests. So we created a multiple choice certification test. And it's seriously, we actually used AI for it to generate the questions. I think we had to prune like 70% of them. But the idea was we can do it very, very, very quickly to create a multiple guest certification around my classes. And uh, and the reason why we kind of did it that way was to kind of prove why are these people charging $8,000 for a certification attempt? It's not that hard to create a multiple choice test. So that's number one. We created a multiple choice test because we hate multiple choice tests. But then we extended it out to where you have the multiple choice, you have to do a cyber range challenge, you have to document a cyber range challenge, and then that all becomes part of your certification. So it isn't just a multiple choice test. And then we made it affordable. It's still $5. We're probably going to kick it up to $25 because of overhead costs with that as well. So just keep your eyes on it if you guys want to jump into it. But my point, getting back to trying to get into computer security, we have over, I think, 300 people, it might be under 300, where we know that people have gotten jobs in computer security specifically because they have taken this training, right? Like Antisyphon isn't something that just sprung out and we just jumped into. If you're looking at a lot of us in Antisyphon, instructors and staff, a lot of us came from the SANS Institute, right? So we have bona fides, we have background, we have track records. We also have massive student rosters of people that we have taught over the years. So we have that level of trust with the community, especially with the companies that you actually want to do work with. So absolutely get in there and do the ACE-T certification out there as well. So there's a long answer to a very basic question. All right, what other questions do you guys have? Um, yeah,
Did you see the one about the legal issues?
yeah, I think I answered
Yeah.
that one.
Okay. Did you answer it? There was a, speaking of, I thought there was a second part to it, but I missed it.
We talked about the legal issues of ad blockers, and I said, whoever told you that is your enemy.
Um, I think you mentioned day one that you legally need to tie everything back to MITRE attack. What law and why is that?
That was a joke.
Oh,
Me
okay.
being facetious. For a while, everything on the internet was MITRE this, MITRE that, MITRE this, MITRE that. And I think I feel like MITRE has maybe gotten too far ahead on their surfboard. They started creating all kinds of different frameworks and all kinds of different tools, and it got more and more complicated. I think the core framework is still really, really solid, the core matrix, but they have so many things going on that I think it's muddying the waters of their mission. You kind of get stuck in that trap of constantly trying to do bigger, better, more, and faster. Interested in doing the certification. Do you have a study guide to prepare for the test? Yeah, it's this class and SOC core skills. Both of them are available on YouTube. You go to the Antisyphon YouTube channel, go to, I think, live, and you'll see multiple iterations of this class and the SOC core skills class. Everything you need to pass the cert is in those two classes. All right. Yeah, don't forget. Oh, I'm going to do that. Thank you so much. I'm going to destroy my lab real quick.
I'm gonna reach out to Roman for you.
You don't need to. Roman
Going
has
to.
kids he needs to feed.
Yes.
There, we just destroyed my lab. Where are we going to learn report writing? Is there a course on the topic? Yes. If you want to find our webcast with BB King, he has a number of different reporting webcasts. Testing for show, reporting for dough, part 1 and 2 is available, and he'll talk about his internal testing methodology, reporting methodology that we use at BHIS. However, if you really want to, I'm going to sell my class again. I'm teaching my intro to penetration testing class at Wild West Hacking Fest, and it will be streamed live. So if you want, go ahead and register for my class. And we have a whole section. We start right at the beginning with reporting, and that entire class is built around reporting as well. So we have that. I've got the training. You should register for it. Like if you want to come, you get to hang out at my house in my barn. I know that sounds awesome, but we've got a barn where I do the training upstairs, and I I grill out for everybody, so they hang out at my house and we climb rocks, ride bikes, do hacking, and have burgers. It's a good time. Where's the link to register? Do we have a link directly
Yeah.
to the class that we?
If you click on the Deadwood link and scroll down, it takes you to the class.
Yep. And
It's
Brian brought
there.
up the steak dinner. Everybody that attends Wild West Hackin' Fest gets a free steak Chuck Wagon steak dinner that is
Yeah.
delicious.
Yes.
And we are in South Dakota. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a hard conference to get to for almost everybody
Yes.
at flights, but we meet people. I'm not kidding. We have Airport Con where people show up to the conference and they wait for a bus. And while they're waiting for the bus, the airport allows us to set up a lounge with all kinds of food, and everyone hangs out, and then we all ride the bus up together. So
Yes. And we have a mechanical bull. There's all
forgot about the
kinds of,
mechanical
I
bull.
mean, there's roping, there's horse stick rodeo, there's old time photos, there's
Go a
tons
little
of
overboard.
talks and workshops. And I mean, it's just it's a
Yeah,
fun time. And it's going to be just as fun virtually. We won't have the mechanical bull.
you're
We can't
so
send
lying.
that
It's
out.
not as fun virtually. It's awesome virtually. It's not as much fun because you can't have a virtual steak.
Yeah.
So, but you
I,
need to
I
make it out. It's,
we need to put in the swag bags for domestic, like a
I
Omaha
know,
steak
Omaha
or
Steak
something.
Company. I wonder if we could do that with my cousins. I don't think we have enough cattle for the steaks to do it.
Yeah,
I just don't. But I'm gonna have to think about that. It might be that we can
I'm
work
gonna
out
get
something.
killed for this idea.
You are so dead.
I
Um,
know.
I'm thinking how much it would cost to ship and like what the cost of the steaks would be. And we could ship steaks to people or brats or something. I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to look into it. But what we do in Wild West Hacking Fest is insane. The actual in-person tickets are sold out unless you buy training. And I think, Megan, aren't we already at 800 people like right
Yeah,
now?
yeah. It's yes. We that's why we can't sell any more just conference only tickets. They have to purchase a training because we have to save the seats for the people that want to purchase the training. So
I know, I know, I know. But if we're looking at Wild West Hacking Fest being sold out, a lot of people are like, well, why don't you go to a bigger venue? We can't.
yeah, we take over the town already.
So give you an idea of how bad this is. We take up every single hotel in Sturgis. We take up every hotel in Spearfish and in Sturgis and in Deadwood. So that's 3 areas completely filled. And then when the reason why we have a bus is because we have people that attend. And one year, I think it was the second year, Megan, people were renting cars and the car rental places ran out of cars. Like they didn't have enough cars in Western South Dakota, like a tourist hub. So we completely overtaxed the entire system of Western South Dakota. In fact, the airlines run additional flights. So if you see the flights are full, just check back again. And they bring in like 2, 3 extra planes to bring people to this conference. And still, the thing that I love the most about it, Megan, is like a lot of local people are just like, what the hell just happened? It's like every year they're like, all of a
Yeah,
sudden,
they're
a
like,
bunch of
wait,
people
weren't
that
the
grew up
bikers just here? Where'd
with
they
bikers
go?
just here. So
Now we've
it's,
got hackers? What's happening?
yeah. So never heard South Dakota and Tourist Hub. That's where Mount Rushmore is, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and
and
this
it's
is,
so fun when you're flying out too, like, oh, you see everybody you were just at the conference with. So that's always fun too.
I'm usually hiding on a mountain bike trail with Corey on the
Yeah.
last. So,
You don't
and
have to fly out.
when are we going to set one up in Phoenix? We were partnering up with one of the conferences down there, and we just haven't. COVID really blew everything to shit. We've kind of stopped partnering, not because of Phoenix. Phoenix, the people were awesome, but a number of conferences B-sides that we partnered with, we kind of got screwed over. And they would say, yeah, we want you to come here and do training and do cool stuff. And then we'd show up and they'd be like, we didn't advertise it. I'm like, why? And they're like, well, it would look like advertising. And I'm like, God damn it. So we're now doing our own conferences. So if we're going to do this, well, not if, we are going to go on the road, it's going to be stripped down conferences of just classes and workshops. And the next few places that we're going to go to are Dallas, San Diego, and the DC area are the main areas. So we're hoping we have Dallas, San Diego, DC, and then the two big conferences are Denver and Deadwood. Those would be our main ones out there as well. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing with the conferences, and we hope we can get this stuff going. Pensacola stop, that would be tough. It's not a
Yeah.
huge, you have a huge military presence there.
Yeah.
Not much else. If you go down to Destin Beach, there's a large cyber presence at the school there
Yeah.
at Harvard. So yeah, and the other reason why we want to go back to San Diego is we rented the entire USS Midway, which was a blast. It was really, really cool, and it was a great. It was probably one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah,
dinner.
that was
Dinner
so
was
cool. And it
really.
was right when the second Top Gun came out, and we
Oh,
didn't
that's
even
right.
know. Like Tom Cruise and freaking Lady Gaga were like across the street, and we're like at our conference and had no idea. We were like, what is this? What's going on over there?
It was
And
like
they
a
were just
huge.
like
There
right
was
there.
fireworks. He flew in a helicopter, and like the
Yeah,
next day we had our party.
we
So
missed it. We missed the whole thing.
yeah, it was great. So we're gonna try to get back on the road. I just got to be honest, like, and Megan can back me up. Like, we're stretched very thin, just starting Antisyphon and trying to deal with just Wild West Hack and Fest and everything. We are very, very stretched thin. And we're trying to get our feet underneath us with processes. We've grown
Yeah.
very, very, very quickly. And
Yes.
we're just trying to keep our head above water as well. Yeah,
Well,
invite
and I mean,
people.
people have to think about it's like a circus. I mean, we have to pack up all the gear and all the things and stuff to travel to these different places. It's not like we just go and show up and, everything's there. We have to bring all of our AV and all of our systems people and internet and all. I mean, it's a lot. If you've never worked at a conference or for a conference, the amount of preparation and stuff that goes in to, leading up to the event, but once you're on site, I mean, it is a lot. It is a lot
Well,
of work, but we
and
love it,
we
or we
do, but I
wouldn't
think
do it.
I think we have people that are like, well, I ran a conference. It's not that complex. It's like you have no idea. Like Megan
No.
said, the key word she said was circus.
Yeah.
It is, we do way too much. Are we
Yeah.
hiring? We're always hiring and we're never hiring.
Yes.
And it's kind of rough right now. with and I don't want to get into politics, but the threat of tariffs and everything created a lot of fear and uncertainty when they first started coming out. And there
Mhm.
was a number of companies that kind of entered into a defensive crouch position. We were still selling pen tests, but everyone kept pushing into Q4. So Q4 is completely packed out at
Yeah.
BHIS. And we're moving into Q1, which is great. But we did have that dip kind of in like Q1, Q2 timeframe
Yeah.
that we're trying to recover from. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on out there.
Um, Farik 18, we're gonna have the call for volunteers for our Denver event coming up soon. So just keep an eye on the website, the Wild West, uh, Farida, sorry. Um, yeah, so just keep an eye on that on the website.
Cool.
Call for volunteers. And we want to make Denver um, you know, much because so many more people can get to Denver. So we're doing kind of like a new speaker uh kind of thing. So we're really trying to make Denver grow Denver because we can't grow Deadwood anymore. It's
No.
we've taken up the whole town and surrounding cities. So we're
And
definitely when we're looking for expansion, we're looking in Denver
yeah,
because we want to take that sucker to the convention center eventually.
yeah, I think this, I don't know, we'll see how we do this year, but
Yeah.
I would like to be at the convention center and pull 3, 4,000 people.
Yeah.
That would be the ultimate goal. And we should
Yes.
be able to do that.
Yeah.
We should be able to pull that off. So there's John.
To
That's
talk
awesome.
Denver.
So, all right, let's get out of here. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All
Strap in for
right.
the last day.
Have a good rest of your day. Hopefully you get some rest, John. All right, everybody. We will see you tomorrow around 12 for day 4 of getting started. And hopefully everyone has a good evening. But we will see you tomorrow. Have a good evening, everybody. Go ahead, Daryl. It's time to kill it with fire. Good night, all.